for now, you're gonna be reacting to KHARN the Betrayer, the bloody 140k lore by the Remembrancer. I one day can actually pronounce his name right. Let's go.
I have slain many enemies and won many battles, and I tell you there is no great secret to success in war. No subtle trick or strategy that has saved my foes. I seek out the enemy, attack as soon as I am able, and with all the force at my command, rend his soldiers and smash his fortresses, leave only corpses behind me, and then move on. Thus my Primarch has taught me, and I find his wisdom has proved worthy on 100 battlefields.
I mean, not wrong, but you know.
Among the warriors of the Legiones Astartes, many would earn glories and deeds worthy of legend.
Blood Angels,
Their battle honors retold for millennia.
Ultramarines,
Each hero of the era Indomitus shall regale the tales of their chapter forebears and attempt to emulate their example of martial skill, valor, and courage. Yet the Space Marines of the Chaos Legions, in the stead of glory, would garner only infamy for their slaughter, barbarism, and heresy. For today, we shall elucidate the merciless killer of the Blood God, said to have claimed the skulls of more than 1 million souls. The 8th captain of the World Eaters Legion, KHARN the Betrayer. With the unification of the war-ravaged world of Terra, a new breed of warriors would be forged. Divided into 20 legions of so-called Angels of Death, these transhuman soldiers would each be crafted to specialize in methods of warfare deemed necessary by the Master of Mankind. The 12th Legion, the Warhounds of Terror, would epitomize brutal efficiency in close-quarters combat and rip, tear, and shred their enemies into bloody ribbons. These were not the warriors of poise, such as the Emperor's Children, nor the stoic defenders of the Imperial Fists, or even the rout of the 6th. They were unabashed and unapologetic killers, earning favor by the Master of Mankind for their blunt yet unwavering loyalty. The so-called Dogs of War of the Emperor would be unleashed upon his foes, where all semblance of remorse or pity would be irrelevant. For among these initial recruits, following the expanse of the burgeoning legion across the stars, a Terran aspirant known as KHARN would begin his first steps upon his 8th
Oh, is it Terran?
Trained by the Centurion Master of Recruits, Gruner, KHARN would train upon the vassal world of Bot until his opportunity to prove himself worthy of the 12th Legion would begin. Competing in the contest, a now established ritual of the 12th Legion, Gruner would task each aspirant to claim 1,000 skulls.
Jesus.
No Astartes had ever accomplished such an endeavor, yet its express objective would drive each Astartes to endeavor to charge into battle with purpose in their minds. Inquiring as to the methods they must use to acquire such trinkets, KHARN's question would earn derision and humiliation, as Centurion Gruner simply laughed at his naivety. Resolving to never be humiliated again, KHARN would swiftly claim skulls across dozens of war zones in order to prove his martial skill and ascend through the ranks of the Legion. Set apart from his kin, as among the most savage warriors of the Warhounds, KHARN would rise to the rank of Centurion of the 8th Company, prior to the reunion of the Legion and its Primarch, Angron.
Angry boy.
Though usually a time of great renewal and pride for many legions, the reunion of the 12th Legion with their Primarch would bring only misfortune. Finding their Genesire not to be a conqueror of worlds, nor a king of repute, their liege would be rescued by the Master of Mankind from the world of Nuceria as a slave. Implanted with the foul device, the Butcher's Nails, during his gladiatorial indentured servitude of the High Riders of Nuceria, the rage stirred within the Lord of the Red Sands would be held in check with only the most fragile restraint. Sealed within the cargo hold of the Warhound's flagship, the Adamant Resolve, Angron would be spirited from his kindred gladiators as they perished at the hands of their oppressors upon the Deshelika Mountains below. Seeking an audience with their Gene-sire following the encounter, each captain of the Legion would attempt to console their Primarch. Overcome with a homicidal rage, Angron would cut down several of the most senior officers of the Legion, as with each death, the Centurion's resolve would waver.
Oof.
Yet among those still alive, only one would have the bravery to face his fratricidal Gene-father. Calmly approaching Angron as he crossed the chamber, now littered with the blood and torn fragments of his fellow captains, KHARN would walk upon the shadow of his looming patriarch. Set upon by Angron, despite his inner need to resist his master's wrath, KHARN would not lay a hand upon his Primarch, unlike his peers. Having sworn an oath to the Emperor to never fight his Primarch, KHARN would endure the brutalization inflicted by his Gene-sire. Fighting his own instincts to surrender his faculties or retaliate against his Primarch, KHARN would accept his fate, no matter should he live or die. Defiantly abiding any wound inflicted by his master, the Centurion of the 8th Company would not beg for mercy, nor yield in the face of impossible odds. Impressed with his son's mental and physical fortitude, Angron would relent in his rampage and see within KHARN the true honor and worthiness that the 12th Legion could possess.
He's a chat.
Now the most respected individual of the Legion in the eyes of Angron, KHARN would beseech his Primarch to allow his Legion to prove themselves worthy of his favor. Installed as the personal equerry of the Lord of the Red Sands, KHARN had proven to be the most capable among his kin to counsel his Primarch. For the future of the Legion would be fraught with woes and misfortune, as the signs of their downfall would begin to show. Renamed as the World Eaters to honor the bravery of the fallen gladiators of Nuceria, known as the Eaters of Cities, the 12th Legion would likewise eschew their former honors and deeds as they sought to epitomize the noble heritage of their Primarch's struggle. KHARN, now ascended as the personal confidant of Angron, would seem an ill-fitting bearer of the title of equerry. Lacking patience, oratory skill, or the subtleties of politics, KHARN would inhabit the role solely due to his ability to console and temper his Primarch's bloodlust.
That's rough.
Always at the side of his master, among the most dangerous of battles, any foe who would escape the wrathful strikes of Angron's weapons would be cut down by his stalwart lieutenant. Despite his attempts to allow the Legion to prove themselves the equal of their forebears in the eyes of their Primarch, the World Eaters would continue to fail to meet Angron's expectations. Abandoning his Legion, Angron would venture alone into the void of space, to which he would not be discovered for over 2 Terran Standard years. Convincing his Primarch to once again rejoin the Legion, Angron would reluctantly give his Legion one more chance to prove themselves worthy. Apothecary Garland Surlak would reverse engineer his Primarch's own Butcher's Nails cortical implants with technologies derived from the world of Genna, to which volunteers of the World Eaters would attempt to survive the integration surgeries of the Fel Archaeotech. All who attempted the procedure would perish, leading Angron to consider once again abandoning his men. Centurion Mago would attempt to destroy Apothecary Surlak's equipment after witnessing the horrors inflicted upon his kin and their descent into madness, yet KHARN would once again, with his actions, decide the fate of his Legion. Preventing the destruction of the Butcher's Nails copies, KHARN would undergo the procedure and through sheer force of will and endurance overcome untold suffering and pain to survive his implantation surgeries. Renewed with purpose in their successful implantation of their first World Eater into his ascended form, a further 1,000 Astartes would undergo the surgeries and survive. Reflecting and incorporating their Genesire's dour and aggressive disposition, the World Eater's descent into madness and blood fury would only worsen.
Yikes.
Like prey for the blood god, KHARN, the World Eaters had begun to walk the Eightfold Path in earnest, and with their Primarch's submission to his thirst for bloodshed and slaughter, their fate would be sealed upon the world of Istvan III.
Oh, that's a cool,
Renewed with an all-consuming need to slay worthy foes in battle, KHARN would quickly gain the notice of the being known as KHARN with the dawn of the war known as the Horus Heresy. Joining his legion in their massacre of their loyalist contingents upon the world of Istvan III, Captain KHARN would be observed by the Lunar Wolf, Garviel Loken, to be steeped in a so-called dark madness as the two crossed blades in battle. Screaming, "I am the Eightfold Path," KHARN would, despite his savage might, be felled by Loken in battle, and be thrown onto the dozer blades of an armored tank. Refusing to die, KHARN would claw his way from under the tank's treads, despite his catastrophic injuries incurred from battle. Recovering from his wounds, KHARN would subsequently be dispatched to the world of Prospero in search of the so-called Moonwolf Sigil, once gifted to the Crimson King by Horus Lupercal, and begin his own personal quest to find a means of curing his mental ailments. Searching for mind-healing arcanum to help ease the suffering incurred by the Butcher's Nails, KHARN and his men would set upon the beleaguered survivors of the burning of Prospero, led by Captain Menez Calliston, for information. Interrogating Calliston, the Thousand Sons captain would reveal such devices to aid his affliction had been destroyed, yet would offer his own psychic powers to aid in his salvation, whilst biding time to recover his weakened strength. Foreseeing KHARN's fate as the uncontainable, unthinking, and unstoppable conduit of the Blood God's wrath, Calliston would be horrified to see the future portents of such a terrible being. Refusing such an offer, KHARN would bludgeon Captain Calliston to death and return to his legion for redeployment. Joining with the Word-Bearer's legion for the despicable Shadow Crusade, the World Eaters would invade the realm of Ultramar to conduct a campaign of harrowing the innocent populace and draw out their protectors, the Ultramarines. During the campaign, the 13th Legion would ensnare the World Eater's Primarch, Angron, into a trap upon the world of Armatura, collapsing entire buildings on top of the foul Red Angel and his men. Damaging the Lord of Red Sand's chain axes, Angron would cast away his weapon, known as Gorechild, for its teeth had been ripped from their sockets, and its function was now unusable. Superstitious of repairing or inheriting weapons, the World Eaters would cite their Primarch's own culture of Nuceria, that to use a weapon discarded by another would bring bad luck to those who would bear them. Yet KHARN would observe the venerated weapon of his Genesire and recover its damaged parts from the battle. Demanding the Dark Mechanicum to restore it to its former glory, KHARN would order their tech menials to scour the aftermath of the battle for Gorchald's teeth, for they were forged from the fangs of Mica dragons, native to the world of Luther McIntyre. Unable to retrieve all the axe's teeth from the battlefield, KHARN would hammer shards from the skulls of fallen Mica dragons housed within the Conqueror's Museum of Conquest, and recover their teeth to improvise components for his newly restored weapon.
That was disgusting.
Wielding the chain axe forevermore, the bite of Gorechild would sunder millions in the eras to come.
Okay, so no, it makes sense now.
For years, the World Eaters would harry the Loyalists of the Throne as the most barbaric and savage marauders the Imperium had ever faced. At the forefront of the final battle for the soul of the Imperium, the defenders of the Siege of Terra would observe firsthand the depravity to which the World Eaters had sunk. Fearless in their headlong charges against walls of lasfire, artillery bombardments, and bolter fire, the blood-drunk warriors of the 12th Legion would show no fear in their suicidal charges against the walls of the Imperial Palace. With KHARN at the forefront of every one of their skirmishes, the champion of Khorne would claim skulls in excess to any of his peers, and prove to be a threat too potent to ignore. Confronted by the Imperial Fist Captain, Sigismund, the Emperor's champion would look in horror at what his once noble compatriot had become. Once close during their joint campaigns of the Great Crusade, the Black Templar of the Seventh had fought alongside KHARN within the gladiatorial pits of the Conqueror as his most trusted chain brother. Now a shadow of his former self, consumed with bloodlust and spasms of rage, KHARN would look upon the visage of his paragon opponent before the two would clash in battle. Bested by Sigismund, KHARN would lay upon the blood-soaked soil of Terra on the precipice of death. Rescued by his kin of the 12th Legion, KHARN would be extracted from the battlefield in a state of dormancy. The remaining captains fought among themselves as to whom would lead their forces, with the murder of one of the captains unleashing a torrent of blood across KHARN, reviving him from his slumber.
What?
Regarded as a miracle gifted by the blood god himself, KHARN would live despite the failure of the traitors to overthrow the Imperium. Vowing to never again taste the bitterness of defeat, KHARN would demand that any who would fail in the name of the blood god must submit themselves to save the bloodthirst of their patron. Retreating into the Eye of Terror, the World Eaters would lick their wounds as the shame of their defeat gnawed at their pride. With their Primarch banished from the material realm by the great angel, Sanguinius, the World Eaters would look to KHARN for leadership. Claiming the demon world of Scalafrax as their base of operations deep within the Ocularis Terribus, the once world of the Eldari would prove a prize worthy of competition between the traitor legions. Coveted by the Emperor's Children Legion, due to its abundance of soul stones, it would not take long for a war for supremacy of the world to erupt.
Of course.
Engaging in bloody battles, with KHARN at their vanguard, the conflict would cause the planet to be engulfed by an unnatural void-spawn squall of bitter cold. Agreeing to a ceasefire as both legions took shelter, the Astartes would be unable to endure the cold for more than moments before freezing to death.
Ah, the betrayer. This part I
Enraged
know.
at the delay of his wrath for even a solar day, KHARN would turn on his kin within their shelters. Armed with a flamer, KHARN would burn his sheltered kin from their hovels and slay both his own men and the Emperor's children across the frozen surface. Fueled by a burning hatred of cowardice, KHARN would kill droves of World Eaters until being confronted by his own mentor, Centurion Gruner.
That's how I got the name the betrayer.
Decrying his madness in his slaying of his own brethren, Gruner would mark him as the betrayer of his legion. Laughing at the accusation, KHARN had slain 1,000,000 souls in the name of his new patron, and had exceeded the ordained challenge of his former mentor as vindication of his deeds. Slaying Gruner with Gorechild, KHARN had proven himself to be the victor of the contest, and would not suffer reprimand, criticism, nor derision from lesser men.
KHARN is a shad.
Disgusted at the weakness of his legion, the Chosen of KHARN would continue his murder spree across Scalafrax, and single-handedly fragment the loyalties of his legion. Scattering their ranks into small warbands of Khornate berserkers, the remnants of the 12th Legion would remain divided for the majority of their future wars across the stars. Said to have killed more of his kin than any other warrior across the stars, never has there been a more fitting attribution to an Astartes than that of the betrayer to KHARN. Hounding the galaxy for over 10 millennia, the betrayer of the World Eaters has assumed the title of the Chosen of KHARN, and in many ways exceeds even the prestige of his Primarch.
That's not wrong.
His claimed skulls in battle, said to be piled high by the Blood God aside his bronze throne, the tally of KHARN the Betrayer increases 8-fold within each passing century. Bathed in the blood of his enemies, and rending his foes limb from limb with Gorechild, the favor of KHARN gifts KHARN with an aura of fell protection, as his offerings bring immense satisfaction to the Blood God. For KHARN cares not where the blood flows, only that it flows, and by this same mantra, the betrayer fells friend, foe, the innocent and the wicked alike in his never-ending frenzy of violence. Joining campaigns such as the 13th Black Crusade of Abaddon the Despoiler, solely for the opportunity to slay great swaves in the name of KHARN, in his most lucid states, KHARN also revels in any campaign seeking to humble and destroy the bastions of the Imperium. Never trusted by his allies, but an indispensable tool when unleashed upon their enemies, the forces of chaos, though wary of the betrayer, call for his aid only for the most desperate and suicidal of missions. His unyielding madness and unquenchable thirst for destruction, never sated, no matter how much blood is spilled, or skulls claimed for the Skull Throne.
40k
The
artwork,
nails
so
fight to
nice.
him. He fought harder. He fought faster. His muscles ripped apart and were instantly reknitted. His blood vessels burst and were restored. He felt heat surge through his body. hotter and whiter than any heat he had ever endured. The black sword resisted it all, silently, implacably, infuriatingly. It was like fighting the end of the universe. Nothing could shake the faith before him. It was blind to everything but itself, as selfish as a jewel thief in a hoard. His chain axe whirred as wildly as he'd ever thrown it, igniting the promethium vapor in the air, sending the blood lashing out like whipcord. He scored hits with it. He wounded the ghost. He made him stagger, made him gasp. The heat roared within him, turbocharging his hearts. He heard the coarse whisper of the great god in his bruised ears.
Do it. Do this thing. Do this thing for me.
The ghost came back at him, tall and dark, his brow crackling with lightning flecks, his armor as light devouring as the blade he wielded. KHARN became sublime in the face of that. The violence he unleashed was like a chorus of unending joy. The ground beneath the two of them was destroyed, sending them plummeting in the clouds of debris. Even when they crashed to the earth, they fought on. They rocked and swayed around one another, obliterating everything within the arc of a sword or the armlet of an axe length.
I am not,
he blurted, feeling the tidal wave of exhaustion drag on even his god-infused limbs. He realized what he had done, then. In the midst of his madness, even as the great god poured himself into his brutalized body, he knew what transformation had occurred. They had always told themselves, after Nuceria, that the Imperium had made the World Eaters. It had been their fault. The injustice, the violence, it had forged that lust for conflict, for the endless rehearsal of old gladiatorial games, like some kind of religious observance to long and justifiable dead deities. That given the excuse for their atrocity, every act of wanton bloodletting, they had done this to us.
I am not.
But now KHARN saw the circle complete. He saw what 7 years of total war had done to the Imperium. He saw what its warriors had been turned into. He had a vision, even then, in the midst of the most strenuous and lung-bursting fighting he had ever experienced, of thousands of warriors in this very mold, marching out from fortresses of unremitting bleakness. Every one of them as unyielding and soul-dead and fanatical as this one, never giving up, not because of any positive cause in which they believed, but because they had literally forgotten how to seed ground. And he saw then how powerful that could be, and how long it could last, and what fresh miseries it would bring to a galaxy already reeling under the hammer of anguish without limits. And then he, even KHARN the Faithful, shuddered to his core.
I am not,
he fought on, now out of wild desperation, because this could not be allowed to go unopposed. This could not be countenanced. There was still pleasure, there was still heat and honor and the relish of a kill well made, but it would all be drowned by this cold flood if not staunched here, on Terra, where their kind had first been made, where the great spectacle of hubris had been kicked off. He had to stand. He had to resist for humanity, for a life lived with passion, for the glorious pulse of pain, of sensation, of something.
I am not.
Weak.
He panted, his vision going now, his hands losing their grip.
As damaged.
The black sword came at him, again. It was impossible, this way of fighting, too perfect, too uncompromising, without a thread of pity, without a kernel of remorse. He never even saw the killing strike. The sword edge hurled at him with all the weight of emptiness, the speed of eternity, so magnificent in its nihilism that even the great god within him could only watch it come. Thus was KHARN cut down. He was dispatched in silence, cast to the earth with a frigid disdain, hacked and stamped down into the ashes of a civilization, his throat crushed, his skull broken, and chest caved in. He was fighting even as his limbs were cut into bloody stumps. even as the reactor in his warp-forming armor died out, raging and thrashing to the very end. But by then, that was not enough. The last thing he saw, on that world at least, was the great dark profile of his slayer. The Black Templar, turning his immaculate blade tipped down and making ready to end the last bout the two of them would ever fight.
Not as damaged,
gasped KHARN, in an agony greater than anything the nails could ever have given him, but with more awareness of the lucid cruelty of the universe than he had ever possessed before.
as you.
And then the sword fell, and the god left him, dead, amid the ruins of his ancient home. This has been a tale of the great Imperium of
That was
Now,
chilling.
read by the Remembrancer. The madness of rage is a chasm far deeper than any emotion, for the deeper you delve, the more violent and catastrophic your actions shall become.
True.
KHARN would betray every vestige of morality he would hold dear, and damn his legion to a future of unremitting and inescapable torment. Look to his example, should the enticements of fury take hold, for there is no glory nor vindication to be found in harnessing such forces. While there is
Blood
no
for the
sating
blood
the
god.
blood gods first, there is meaning to be found in duty. For only in resolute, stoic duty may you find peace everlasting.
That was impressive. I'm not gonna lie.